Hello and welcome to the Charmed Life Podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe. And I'm your host. My name is Tricia Carr. This episode is about animals. Oh, animals are my everything. So I'm an animal communicator as well. And my conversation, this is a conversation episode. My conversational partner, Jeanne Bassett, is also an animal communicator and animal healer. And we have a really beautiful time sharing some stories, swapping stories, and hearing about the work that Julie does, which is really deep. I love hearing about the energy healing that she does. So before we get to that, let me just invite you to make sure you pay attention to the links that are in the description, because Lightshine Spiritual Academy has many programs coming up. Depending on when you're listening to this, we do have the Intuitive Intensive coming up in January, the third week of January of 2022. We also have workshops coming up, an astrology workshop with Alicia Clark-Tepper. Oh my gosh, we have so much coming up. And we also have the other intensives coming up for the year. But if you are listening to this in time for that intuitive intensive, oh my goodness, it is groundbreaking. It is powerful. I'll play you a little testimony from some recent graduates about a little bit into this episode. So I hope that you will check that out if it tickles your heart. All right, so Jeanne Bassett, she is, as I said, an animal communicator, an energy healer, and she is also a pet behavior specialist. She uses many different techniques to help resolve destructive behavior, anxiety, and stress in animals while cultivating a stronger connection between the animal and their humans. So I just loved everything that we talked about. So I hope you enjoy this too, and I will chat with you on the other side. Julie, I'm so excited to have you on. This is really such a joy. I mean, we have been connected in a lot of ways, and of course, with our joint passion and, I don't know, obsession with animals, right? That's fair, right?
That's fair. Very fair.
Yeah. And so I'm really excited because there's the part of your work that I am not familiar with. But before we jump into all of that, I just want to let everyone get into the beauty of your energy. So can you just share with us your journey, the work you're doing, wherever you want to start would be wonderful.
Oh, gosh. Open-ended question there.
I know. It's fun, though.
Well, I've always had a love for animals. My mother loved animals. We had a dog growing up, which I was an only child, so that was more like my sister to me. I would cry on her shoulder and things like that. And throughout the years, I've always, and my my mom used to have box turtles and raised lizards, things like that. I mean, she was very into animals, and I think I got that from her because I really love animals. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was, but I shut it off like most light workers or energy healers do. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was working for corporate America. I ended up having back surgery, and 2 weeks after that, I had a pulmonary embolism.
Oh my goodness.
I decided that I didn't want to go back to corporate America because it was so stressful. I was working long hours. And so I started taking classes, and my gifts started opening up. And the one I landed on was animal communication because it just felt so right for me. Mm-hmm. And, I went back to corporate after I had finished my short-term disability. And then I was laid off.
Oh, that's something. The spirit telling you, no, for reals, you're not welcome back even.
Yeah. Because I was asking my husband for a divorce, planning to move out of the house and get an apartment. And that was like Mother's Day. so I found the apartment. That Thursday, I was going to move in the next weekend. That Thursday, I was laid off.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, do I continue with this? And it's like, yes, I have to. So I did, and, started working on my business, to more classes, trying to open up all my gifts or remember my gifts. And that's where I am now.
Yeah. So you always had an interest? Like, did you ever, were you always interested in spirituality, but maybe you just, like, what was your forgetfulness time like? You know what I mean?
Well, I was always fascinated with like the supernatural, ghosts. So I'd always watch like Charmed, The Witches and Charmed. Yeah. Any ghost stories and things like that. I just had a fascination for it. And yeah, it's
it's always there. What kind of gave you the tickle to actually take a class? And do you remember what the first class or classes you started to take were?
Well, when I was on my short disability, I took intuitive or a transformational coaching class with Mary Morrissey. Cool. I took a health coaching class with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I also took an animal communication class with Lynn McKenzie.
Lynn McKenzie, I'm not familiar with her. I'll have to look her up. How was that?
It was great.
Yeah.
That's the one that really got me started. And what I like about her class is she teaches the energy healing part of it as well.
Yes.
And so that's what I've been using primarily to this day.
With animals, also with humans, or you mean with your animal work?
Actually, it works on humans as well.
Right. Yeah, it does. So and so with the animal communication, there's energy healing component. What is the experience? How would you describe what animal communication is? How about that? How would you describe it?
Connecting telepathically with an animal to understand their thoughts, their feelings, and their beliefs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll send them pictures. Sometimes I will ask them if I can see through their eyes. It just depends on what is going on and how best I can communicate and serve them.
Yes. That's awesome. And then the energy healing, is that a process that you utilize? Is there a specific process that you have with the energy healing, or is it more free flowing?
There is, because I will do energy healing on the physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. And when I connect in with the higher self for the animal, I only do what's requested by their higher self or as guided by spirit. And there's a whole list of things I go through just to make sure I'm not missing anything. And then after I'm done, I'll ask them if they need any additional healing. And if they do, sometimes it's cutting a cord to a past life. Sometimes it's emotional freedom technique or EFT or tapping. And, I have a lot of other modalities that at my disposal that I can use if requested.
With EFT with animals, do you use yourself as the proxy? So you tap on yourself?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so when you're doing EFT with your body, yourself as the proxy, do you sort of empathically step into the animal? Ask them if you can step into their energy? Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really great. And what kind of, do you see when you said that you only do what the higher self requests? So I imagine sometimes that differs from what their human family would, hope or wish would happen. How often do you have to have that conversation with the person and saying, your dog asked me to work on this and said, leave my heart issue alone? Or does that ever happen? Something like that? And what's that process like?
It hasn't as of yet.
Good. Okay.
I always request permission from the owner to do the energy healing as well as from the animal.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't want to be healed, then I don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. And so has that happened? The animal says, no, thank you?
It has,
mm-hmm.
But not very often. Most of the time they welcome the healing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever actually had, well, I should take that back. If it's a session that's a domesticated animal where the human has made an appointment with me, I've never had an animal say, you can't communicate with me. But again, I think just the respect of asking permission makes them comfortable for it. Right. I have had animals in the wild either say no or not really be able to welcome in the communication because they're kind of too stressed out with whatever's going on with them, if that makes sense. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's like, the higher selves are usually cooperating. Your higher self is signaling to the humans who would have their animals signaling, you know what I mean? Like it all just kind of works out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I know a lot of times animals are very empathic, and so they'll absorb the emotions from their humans, from other animals around them, and sometimes they even pull it in from a past life. Mm-hmm. And just clearing out the emotions can have a world of good for them.
Right. On their physical bodies. And animals are they heal, they're so much better at healing than we are, right? Because, we might go like, am I healed? Maybe I should think about that a little bit more. And animals are just like, boom, it got vented and I'm done. And they move forward because they're so present,
Yes.
As long as the trauma is sort of witnessed and released, if there's a trauma pattern in the energy, they're much better at it. They're such fantastic teachers, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I would love to hear about your pet behaviorist. What is the title? Is it pet behaviorist?
Pet behavioral specialist.
Love it. And what is that modality like?
That's actually because it's energy healing. I use energy healing and animal communication to help resolve behavioral issues in our animal companions. Mm-hmm. And our chakras are all associated with different parts of the body, mm-hmm. as well as different behavioral issues based on, like the root chakra is all about fear and insecurity. And when it's out of balance, a lot of times it can have a really scared dog or very insecure dog. Mm-hmm. And animals actually have 9 major chakras where humans only have 7. Mm-hmm. And one of those is the sensing chakra. And the sensing chakra, how animals can hear better than us, see better than us, smell better than us. That's because they have a sensing chakra and we don't. Mm-hmm. And so when it's out of balance, it can lead to overreactivity or underreactivity. So if you got a dog that's barking all the time or has obsessive behavior, that could mean that the sensing chakra is out of balance. Mm-hmm. And the major chakras are like the fine tune or the coarse dial on an old-fashioned radio. And the minor chakras are more like the fine tuning. And sometimes you have to do both to get the correct behavior.
Yes, absolutely. The fine-tunement is important. And then you need to, I guess, you're a pet behavior specialist, but you have to pass it on to the humans, don't you? You're probably a human behavior specialist too, right?
Not so much, because they're just so thankful that their pet is behaving again. Mm-hmm. I had one client that was going to have to give up her dog because her dog kept running through an electric fence.
Oh, goodness.
And getting down to the road and almost caused a few accidents. Mm. And so she was so scared that she was going to have to give up her beloved Buckley.
Mm.
And so I talked to him. I showed him pictures of what could have happened. I did energy healing on him, and now he won't go past the electric fence.
I love it.
That same dog I found out was also a little bit autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wouldn't want to come inside. And so she had me work on him again. And now he comes inside right away and doesn't, kind of back off trying to play or, just being Buckley.
Yeah.
So, seeing things like that and knowing how I've helped just makes me feel so good, makes me feel like I'm serving my purpose.
That's beautiful. And now for these messages.
Do you have a sense that there's more to life than what you can see?
Maybe you've had vivid spiritual dreams, experienced odd patterns and synchronicities, or even had hunches or premonitions that ended up being accurate.
You know there's more to this life, but at the same time, you feel blocked or stuck and like you don't even know where to start.
That's all about to change. Lightshine Spiritual Academy presents the Intuitive Intensive, a groundbreaking 8-week program designed to blast open your intuitive abilities and catapult you into a dynamic, connected, and psychic life.
Here's what graduates of the Intuitive Intensive have to say.
This program has been game-changing, life-changing.
There's no going back. I can't unsee all the things that I've seen. I can't unfeel all the things that I've felt. It's been life-changing, not just because of everything that I've learned, but everything that I've experienced.
Join spiritual teachers Crystal Ann Compton and Tricia Carr in this immersive program of education, high vibration, and group coaching.
I have found my purpose and my calling. I really came in to find myself, and that was one of the biggest gifts, is finding my true path.
Read all about the curriculum and register now by going to class.lightshineacademy.com/2022II. Class begins the week of January 23rd, 2022.
If you feel called to it, if it gets you excited in your heart, if it feels joyful, do it. Just do it. Just do it.
You bring up a good point, especially mammals, I would say, but probably all animals with brains, they do have things like neuroatypical situations. And so we can support that, but sometimes that's a part of it. You know what I mean? Like that's a part of how their pattern is going to be. And so there's certain things we can do to support it, but sometimes we have to also just accept certain conditions. I mean, obviously we have to do that as humans as well, right?
Right.
How do you feel? I mean, I feel like the work that you do and the work that we do I think it's very important. I think it would be better to start with that before we just immediately put animals on medication, on mood-altering medications. Of course, those are necessary sometimes.
Right.
But listen to what you've been able to do.
And, I'm not a trainer and I'm not a veterinarian, but my work complements both of those.
Yes.
So I like thinking that I'm part of the process in the healing, because I would never just do healing and not recommend somebody go to the vet if I thought that they needed to go to the vet.
Absolutely. And one of those scenarios that comes up a lot is, switching gears to cats, is the cat going outside the box. And I'm sure you get that a lot, So with that, I'm always like, well, the first thing we need to do is go to the vet. Have you gone to the vet? Right. Because that's often associated with something going wrong with the body. Not always, but
right.
And how do you handle when the human says, can you tell them to go in the box and not outside the box? Because it's like, obviously the cat, it's not that the cat isn't using logic that's not what it's about. It's about that primal nature, as I call it, being in that primal nature when they have something going on in the body. Have you had those scenarios? Have you had good results from figuring out they're always, first of all, we should say they're unique. Each one of those situations, cat going outside the box,
Right.
And all of them are unique. But do you have some of those you can share?
Actually, I do. There was one cat that, well, I always recommend going to the vet because, sometimes that's the only way they can get our attention.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's because of fear that they're, because when they're in the litter box, they're at their most vulnerable.
Exactly. And it smells like them. And you know what I mean? Like they actually, the scat, the feces and the urine, when they feel confident, will be like claiming territory. But when they feel vulnerable, it makes them even more vulnerable because that's their scent. And they can smell it however clean we think it is. They can smell it. And so to them, it's like they've got a neon sign going, come get me, come get me. So again, it's not logical because they're inside safe, but it's their primal nature.
And I've had it where they don't like their litter box.
Yes.
They don't like
their
litter.
Uh-huh.
But, somebody doesn't clean out their litter box. They're going to go outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a cat too that had arthritis and had a hard time getting into the litter box.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so she got this one that had a lower side on it and the problem resolved.
I've had cats who have there's one and a couple where the paws were very sensitive, and one of them was because of something that was like an arthritis. And so they had the crystal kind, and they're like, that cat hurts my hands. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then I've also had a cat saying when someone uses the sawdust kind, it's got like a really strong aroma. And the cat was like, it gives me a headache. I don't want to go anywhere near it. And turns out, and then I read sometime later, an animal expert saying that is not an appropriate substrate for a cat to be exposed to, period, like that pine litter.
Right.
So, I mean, the cat knew it and cat told us. But there are situations where it's because they are having, like if they have a kidney disease or they're having something, some kind of bowel issue. And
or
they
UTI or crystals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, crystals and they feel very vulnerable when they're in the box. And so sometimes they just go directly outside of it because it's pretty close, but they don't want to feel so vulnerable. And then other times they'll go on the couch and they'll do things. They do it in places where they feel very safe. And if they have a chronic condition, I don't know, in my experience, it's hard to remedy that then, because if they have a chronic condition, they may just continue their behavior of going outside the box because it's what they need to feel safe. But sometimes if you add extra boxes, it'll help. Have you had any experience where it's a chronic condition that's physical?
Yes and no. One, it was a multi-cat household.
Mm-hmm.
And this one cat felt very vulnerable and was afraid this other cat was going to attack her.
Mm-hmm.
And the litter box was in like a laundry room. So there was only one entrance and exit.
Yeah.
So she showed me a picture of like a recliner. And she's saying that would be perfect for me because that way I have two ways to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And she put the litter box there, problem solved.
Yeah. I had that similar in my home. My cat, Con, he doesn't like cats. I mean, that's... He doesn't like cats. I don't know what to tell you. You could bring a dog over and he's like, hey, friend, how's it going? But cats, he has a thing. Anyway, so he has his own place in the house. And he actually came to he was rehomed at age 6. And he came to our home because he wasn't getting on with the other two cats. But it all came down to that box. And they had it in a place they actually had it in a really interesting setup, which I get why they liked it. It was like, it was almost like a doggy door that went out to like a rabbit hutch. And that's where the boxes were. So they were outside essentially, and they didn't have to have a box inside. But Con had to go into this hole and then be trapped potentially with his, cat family members who he didn't get on with. And I went to, before we rehomed him to us, I went and met him and I was like, oh, he does not like this. He just add a box, add it somewhere and they're like, no, we're not going to. I was like, okay, he lives with me now. But he also in my home, even though he has his own space, he has a box, in the one place, but on the very far corner of his apartment, as far away from the other cats as possible, he was peeing on the curtains in the place that he wanted to, where he also slept all the time too, like his napping spot. So he just wanted a little extra security. So I put a box there. Stop peeing on the curtains. He just wanted a little bit of his urine smell next to where he, likes to nap, and worked out just fine. Sometimes you just got to give them something to prefer. And they do prefer to go in dirt like they would in nature.
Right.
But yeah, those aren't health issues. And I don't know, with the health issues, it gets a little trickier. It can get trickier with the going in the places that we would prefer they didn't go. But sometimes adding boxes will help that too.
Yeah, and I find once they are actually treated by the veterinarian with the antibiotics or whatever there needs to be, and the health issue goes away, their peeing outside the litter box goes away too. Yes,
definitely. That's definitely something. I just have had a few clients where they have a chronic, thing, like a chronic IBS or a chronic, maybe they have kidney disease, but they still have a while. They're going to live with kidney disease for a while, or those different things, or reoccurring UTIs, which are, oh gosh, I can't even imagine having to live that way as a kitty. But anyway, so the point is, though, I would say another thing that comes up with the kitty boxes is that they're not mad at you.
Right.
If they go outside the box.
They're just trying to get your attention.
And also they feel vulnerable. They have that primal thing. They're feeling very insecure, and they just go where they go because they kind of just, I'd say it's almost like the higher self is getting the word out to the human. It's kind of directing them. But in the cat mind, they're just like scared, you know what I mean? And they just go where they go because they can't go in the box at the time. Yeah. What other kinds of animals have you worked with? Cats and dogs are obviously kind of the number one pet for America, but there are, in other countries, birds are the most common.
I worked on some birds.
Mm-hmm.
There was one of my clients had a new parakeet, and the other one, she had two parakeets. One was a new one, and the other one had just lost his mate.
Oh.
And she was worried about putting them in the same cage together. And so I talked to the bird, and he says, yeah, I'm fine with it. I want the company.
Yeah.
So I talked to the other bird. Yeah. But they wanted to be in the bigger cage.
Mm.
She did it. They got along beautifully.
Yeah.
I've also talked to a horse. The horse was grieving.
Mm.
And the horse was actually grieving a dog.
Oh.
And when I told the woman about it, she said, well, I don't know about a dog. And then I asked the horse a little bit more. It's from a past life.
Oh.
They were both dogs in a past life. And you're going to get a kick out of this. The dog saw the show Mr. Ed. So one dog decided it wanted to come back as a horse.
Oh.
And the other dog said, nah, I'm coming back as a dog again. And so he was missing the dog because the dog, I guess, in the new life had passed.
Oh.
And he says, I miss all our philosophical conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was grieving. So I released a lot of emotions from him, and and aligned his chakras as well as some other things that he requested, and he was fine after that.
Mm. And horses, they're so like doggies anyway. They're like giant dogs.
And he did have some requests for his human,
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a little lonely. So he wanted more attention from her and things like that. And, everything's fine now.
Mm. He got to express his grief and understand. And it's what's interesting is it's sometimes if it is something, whether it's from a past life or even just a past event in this life, if they get to express themselves and they can they can feel that their human understands,
Right.
that helps them to release it, where that doesn't always work for humans. Like if my husband understands my trauma, that doesn't help me necessarily. It's like my process is so much more complex, it seems. But yeah, they're so wonderful. They just, and it will do things like physical ailments, injuries, they'll just clear right up. It's amazing, very miraculous sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I've been treating my cat with gastritis. Whenever he doesn't want to eat, the vet had me give him some pills, and, I'd have to keep giving him the pills. He doesn't like taking the pills. So I just said, I'm an energy healer. I can do this. So I just started working on him, and, it's pretty much shortly after I do the energy healing on him, he starts eating again.
Yeah.
So
that's right. And the thing is about energy healing is that, I was just saying sometimes it's really miraculous and it's a one treatment instant fix, but other times it's a therapy, and that's just what it's meant to be. And I think that's what we have to be okay with as energy healers. But I think it's also good as clients to realize that sometimes it's a therapy, like massage is a therapy, and, you're going to get a sore back again. And that's how some conditions are. They're more of they require the ongoing support, and be okay with that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm also a pet medium, and there was one dog that was very, very sick. And, I talked to the dog. The dog didn't want to transition yet. And so I told the owners, and, the vets were saying, oh, you better put her down. You better put him down. You better put him down. Well, the dog survived.
Oh, wow.
The dog made it. The dog is living a happy, healthy life again. So it's just times like this when I just so love being the voice of the animals. Because he was not ready to go.
And he knew it. And the higher self was a part of it, obviously, because he made it through.
And, this person trusted me enough to go against the vet's wishes. Because she knew in her heart, I believe, that the dog was fighting. Yeah. And actually that's happened twice now, where, the dog is really, really sick and he's come through it. And I just love being a part of it. I just love being their voice and helping them however I can.
It's such a vulnerable position for you to be in, for us to be in. We have to just give the information and trust the process, trust the family. But it's true, like you said, she knew. In fact, that humans have their connection to their animals, and they know, they feel it. I mean, they can, just like we do, we can ignore our own needs, and they can, but you being able to amplify the animals part of the conversation, really, you can tell when that human is like, they already feel it. There's no convincing necessary, right? It's
sometimes, sometimes they trust what their vet says.
Yeah.
And, they're so wrapped up in their emotions that sometimes it's hard for them to feel what their animal is trying to tell them.
And they're wrapped up in fear, which we completely understand. When your animal is sick or hurting, it's so hard. I mean, we can communicate with animals, but when my animal is hurting, it's hard for me. I have to be in a trance in order to trust what I'm hearing from them, because my fear is so loud, right? And that's one of the great things that this position does, is that because we have more of an objective, even though it's not totally objective because we are obsessed with animals, but you have more of an objective perspective, and you're not resonating with the fear of your animal being in pain of some kind.
And sometimes it just needs, a second opinion.
Yes.
So
one of the times where the end of life situation with an animal. And one time there was the human had said to me, she was like, I don't want to make this decision. I just want God to make the decision. And I said, you know what? That's fair, because there's something that's kind of misaligned about the fact that we have the option to euthanize. And I support euthanasia. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong at all. But it is a really almost impossible position to be in as a human. And so we have to have, when we do support the animal in that way, I support, with euthanasia, we have to surrender to the fact that God or higher self is actually, moving us in that way. And so when she said that, I was like, that is absolutely fair that you feel that way. And so let's find a way to let God make the decision. And is that you getting the certainty between you and your dog that you're going to support her with this, with euthanasia, with medicine? Or is it that you're going to allow a natural passing? Because there's also nothing wrong with allowing a natural passing. I mean, because I think sometimes that decision is so hard, because we think, if we make the decision, did I do it too soon? Or did I let it go on too long and then I allowed them to suffer? And I think we got to release that responsibility, because it's too much. It's an impossible puzzle to solve.
Absolutely. And, if somebody's facing that decision, I'll ask the animal, what do you want? Mm-hmm. Sometimes they would like some help. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they say, no, I just want to go on my own.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. And I never know, you never know what it's going to be. And explaining, I've explained to many animals what the process is. And I had animals say, oh, wow, thank you. That's just so beautiful. Thank you for that. Because they don't understand medicine. Of course, I don't understand medicine either. But when you explain to them that there's a process that helps them to get well, and then they trust the human's decision about it, which I think is really sweet. Mm-hmm. In my story, this person, she ended up not doing euthanasia, and she held her dog the whole time while she passed. And she said it was like heart-achingly beautiful. There was something about it that was so beautiful, and it seemed right. And it was honestly like it was like within an hour of her making the decision. So the dog kind of proved to her that it was the way that they were to go.
Right.
Yeah. And then she's also, I know this person, worked with her many times. And then she's also assisted her dogs after that time. It's a really, medicine is, obviously Western medicine is a part of what we, of life. So, but energy healing and spiritual healing and communication, I think, is another very important part in marrying them together. Have you been able to work with someone who is more Western? Because it's not an easy fit, to find a vet who's open to it, or find, even a trainer who might be open to it.
Not really.
I know, right? Do you know who Lydia Hibby is? She's an animal communicator.
No, I don't.
She's awesome. I worked, before I was open to my gifts or my abilities, I worked with her with my animals, and she was a vet tech for like 25 years. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be amazing if the vet offices actually had someone who, and also as an animal communicator, to have that much exposure. She's not a vet and she doesn't try to do medicine, but she has a good idea of when it's time to go to the vet, and even like some alternative. And that's what you're cultivating with the pet behavior specialist modality.
Yes. And one of my goals for next year is to contact some holistic vets and see if I can partner with them.
Yes.
To try and help more people and help them to do a better job and, complement what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's a good place to start, with a holistic vet. You might still get but that's okay. We just move on to the ones that are.
Well, that's where I'm starting there.
Yeah. I actually have on my heart to work with sanctuaries. And so I did that. I was reaching out to sanctuaries and then just offering my services. And one of them wrote me right back and said, "That's wonderful. Yes, please come on Thursday." And, so they were very open. I mean, they were very spiritual, metaphysical and minded anyway. It was a horse sanctuary. I still work with them occasionally. So what the services that you offer, are they all in one? And what are your actual sessions and your services look like? Do you work remotely? Do you work in person or in dog and cat?
I generally work remotely because my energy healing sessions can last anywhere from like an hour to, 2.5, 3 hours sometimes, depending on how much healing they need. Because like I said, I only do what they request, but if they request everything, I'm going to do everything. I do have like 30-minute and 60-minute animal communication sessions, a full energy healing session, and also a pet mediumship session. The full energy healing, like I said, I go through the physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. I'll give them like animal essences, which are essentially essential oil combinations for animals. I'll offer them crystals. I'll offer them colors. There's also brain integration exercises I might do if they request it. A thymus thump, which is both an energy and an immune boost. Then on the emotional level, I use the meridians to, because a lot of the meridians is another energy system in addition to the chakras. And so the meridians will hold a lot of stored emotions. And for instance, if you have a lot of emotions stuck in the stomach meridian, it can lead to a physical ailment such as a stomach ulcer, acid reflux, upset tummies, things like that. So it's good to release these emotions from the meridians. Then on the spiritual level, I go through the chakras, make sure all of them are aligned and balanced. I'll ask them if they would like me to call in an archangel for them. There's also something called a miasm, which is ancestral energy that is causing an impact in this life. And so there's things I can do to help with that. And then there's also like electromagnetic stress, negative beliefs, and geopathic stress that I can release.
That's amazing. That is a big list of things. And do you have do you report it to the human, and in what detail? Because I can't imagine then it's going to take you 3 hours to write out what it is that you do.
What I do is I have a Zoom call, a 30-minute Zoom call where I go over everything I did, and it explains to them why I did it, and any communication that they gave me along the way. For instance, a lot of times I pick up that they were from a puppy mill or, either in this life or a previous life, things like that. And I will relay that to the human.
Yeah. So the origin story of the animals, that's something that comes up a lot too, because sometimes a lot of times people have rescued their animals, so they don't really know what their history is. Of course, there's the origin story that has to do with past lives as well. And that can be really ripe with ways to release trauma sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had dogs come back that were war dogs, dogs that came back that were part of a puppy mill. Also dogs that came back that were part of a dog fighting ring.
Oh, gosh.
And so all of that trauma they brought back into their current life. And that's why they were having some poor behavioral issues. So that's something else I can help to try and resolve.
Yes. And, I've had, when animals have been rescued and then they tell the story of how they were separated from their mom, and, it's really interesting. I find it really beautiful sometimes, and they'll talk about their siblings, and they'll talk about being in this shelter and that shelter, and then knowing that their human was coming for them. It's really, really beautiful. Do you have some of those experiences as well?
Well, I have one that's this woman lost her cat, and so she's wondering if her cat was going to come back to her.
Oh, she got lost and not passed away. She was lost.
Passed away.
Oh, passed away. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And she's wondering if it's going to reincarnate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what this cat told me is that she's going to be reincarnating on and born on Christmas Day.
Oh.
And she's going to probably about a month afterwards, there's something going to happen to her mom. And so she's going to end up in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman does, foster the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to be connected. She's going to have a sister a brother with her. And she was telling me she wants her name to be Noelle for a Christmas kitty. But she was very insistent that she's going to be born on Christmas Day.
Oh.
Because the human kept wanting, well, how am I going to know?
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to know. And I kind of got the impression that she's going to have some of the same characteristics as the cat that passed.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're going to need a little special care because they're only going to be like a month old when they come in. And, that's going to help them bond even more. And,
And is that this coming Christmas?
That's this coming Christmas.
So you'll find out in about from the time we're recording, maybe in about 6 weeks or something, if Noelle has found her mama. How exciting.
Yeah. Although it's really hard to do timeline work because, one decision, it can shift the timeline.
Yeah.
But, she keeps insisting she's going to be born on Christmas Day.
That kitty's got a plan. Well, I mean, the human can, if the human's not as insistent, then maybe the human could change the plan. But it sounds like that kitty's already made her plan. So she's going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but after she's born, she doesn't have a whole lot of control as to what happens after that.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Who actually gets her? But yeah,
that's very exciting. Wow, Julie, this has been really amazing. You just the work that you're doing is so deep and profound, and I want to just tell you thank you so much for doing it. Because you're really grounded in it too, So I think, unfortunately, sometimes when, not necessarily with animal communication and healing, but maybe sometimes with that, when people are working in advocacy, you know what I mean, like advocating for animals, it's really hard to stay grounded because we see a lot of, you're open to seeing a lot of things and feeling defensive for animals and kind of carrying that trauma and carrying that yourself. But you're able to, you feel very grounded and balanced about it. And that's really important to keep on your own trauma release, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we have all of your links, everything, how people can be in touch with you. Is there any other thing you would like to share as we wrap up this conversation?
If you're interested, I do offer a free consult if you aren't sure they're more than welcome to book a free consult and I can talk to them and, they can get comfortable with me and I can answer any questions they have.
Wonderful. That's so great. That's really awesome. What a great offer. Well, thank you so much for being on, Julie, and just keep doing the beautiful work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this time with you, and thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Well, I hope that sparked in you something that is different, something that is surprising, something that is special, but of course uplifting about how we are connected and connecting to animals. I just find it so, animals just teach me so much. They may teach me more than humans teach me. Maybe that's because I'm paying more attention to them. And so Julie has an offer for those who are listening to this podcast. So do check the description below for that offer. It is only through the end of 2021. So check that out because that clock's a ticking. And perhaps check it out even if you're hearing this after, because maybe, who knows, maybe there's an extension on it. We'll see. And anyway, so I want to also invite you to please leave a review on the podcast. That helps me so much. It helps to boost the light quotient of our relationship, as well as the light quotient of this podcast. And you can leave stars. You can leave something that you want to share. You can actually write a review, whatever you like. I just want to make that invitation to you, and with my whole heart, deeply appreciating you. And I do appreciate you for coming and co-creating this podcast by listening. So thank you so much. And with that, well, I just hope that you found a way to love animals and nature and let them love you even more because, well, I mean, to me, that's what life is all about. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.